pruner's pair of scissors and some tweezers. They have all been sterilised with some rubbing alcohol, and I've got some hydrogen peroxide as well. So we will gently unpot this little Colmanara Catatante. I don't know if that's how you say it. Anyway. Oh gosh, there's hardly any media in here anyway. Okay, so I've got a couple of roots sticking out the bottom. You see, that will always make it a little bit difficult to pull out. If those roots are good, this one's no good, but that's a good root. Just try and gently kind of pull it through. That's it, so you don't have to damage it. Now, I don't know if you can see this root system, but it is fairly impressive actually. It is really good. These are good roots. I'm not sure. I'm sure I'll find some in the middle that aren't great. Oh, of course I will, because look in the middle. There is a sphagnum root ball in the middle. Do you see? So what this means is that a lot of seedlings and young plants are grown just in sphagnum moss, and when the nurseries repot these plants, it really doesn't make sense to do what the home grower does and clean out the entire root system. If you had to do that with, you know, hundreds of little plants, you'd be there all day. So they lift it out of the pot and they will plonk it into a bigger pot and chuck some bark around it. So all this old sphagnum is from when it was a baby plant, and it is all just in the center here. Let me see if I can, it's all broken down. There we go. So it's a pretty healthy plant really, despite this old sphagnum. But I'm gonna go give this a good rinse, I think, and then I'll come back. Okay guys, I've given it a good wash. We've still got a ball, like a mass here, which is proving very difficult to get into. Most of these roots are really healthy. And even, so this is the big ball of roots in the middle here, and even a lot of those are quite healthy. It's I find Oncidiums probably the most difficult to tell whether they're alive or dead, because you can see all these roots actually look white and they all look healthy, but sometimes they're not. And if you give the roots a little bit of a tug, you can see like that sort of came off. The velamen will come off the dead roots. So you just give them a little tug. Now, obviously, there are about 1 million roots here, and I can't give all of them a little tug. So Oncidiums are very forgiving, but in a pot, in the wrong conditions, that dead tissue can cause rot, and especially if you've got old media like this. So this is all broken down sphagnum and, I don't know, mini perlite, like teeny tiny perlite in the middle here, and I would prefer to get as much as I can of that out. Okay, so I think I've probably done the best I can. It's still a bit of a knot here, but it's just going to have to stay because I don't want to cut it off or anything. I've gone through and chopped off the roots that I thought were dead, but there really weren't that many, and just give it a little bit of a gentle pull on these roots as well, just to see if there's any dead vellum in there. The other thing is I'm just going to have a little pick around the center here for any of that old sphagnum as well, just because it's really old, I think. It's not in any sort of form, it's really crumbly, and if it's like that, it's probably going to be quite acidic, which can eventually burn your roots. So I've given the plant a little bit of a wash too because it was covered in peat moss. My fault. But when I did that, I had a close look at the leaves. There doesn't seem to be any sort of real pests on them or anything that are obvious to me. In fact, it looks like a very, very healthy plant. So that's good. Alright, so I'm going to spray with the hydrogen peroxide, the entire root system. I'm going to try and get in the little crevices as well. So, I got this tip from Miss Orchid Girl. She's a big hydrogen peroxide fan. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know if I'm fully sold on it, whether I absolutely need to or not. When I repot my own orchids that I know don't have bugs and stuff like that in them, then I don't bother. But new plants I do tend to. Tell me what you do, because I'm interested to know. Anyway, that hydrogen peroxide's working away there. So we'll come back later and repot this guy. Okay, so I've unpotted like 6 orchids. And this was my biggest cattleya, and we've gone through the unpotting of it already. It's fizzed away in the hydrogen peroxide, and I've got this pot for it. It does seem a little bit big, but there are 3 new growths on this Colmanara. It's got a massive root system. It's just going to chuck out more roots, and it's actually potentially got 3 new directions of growth after this. So it's a 15 centimetre pot, I think, which, what's that, 6 inches? And so that's how it fits in. There's still quite a bit of room on each side here. But yeah, I think it's going to be fine. I really do. And I don't want to have to pot it again as soon as it throws out a new set of growths. I've got some leca here, which I'm going to put in the bottom of the pot. I've got a handful of, might get a little bit more actually, of medium. Let me just get some more of that. Some medium orchiata bark. I've got a smaller grade mix here of bark, charcoal and perlite. I think it's about a 1:1:1. And it's a, let me check here, it's 6 to 9 millimeters. It's a classic mix. In our climate we do get really hot summers, so and I'm not one to water daily. I prefer to be able to space out my watering a little bit. So along with all that, I've got some sphagnum moss here as well, which has been pre-moistened. I may need more than that, but we'll see. I use a good amount of sphagnum in my Oncidium mixes because I find that they're very thirsty plants. They've got obviously quite a big root system. I use a bit of a finer grade for them. Just because it needs to sort of get in between all those spaces, and you remember this one has like this ball in the middle which I was unable to completely untangle, so I don't want lots of sort of too much space in there. So at the bottom of this again I'm going to put some of the bark and leca. Just to give it a bit of drainage through there. That's good. And give this a bit of a mix. in some of this sphagnum as well. Let's mix it all in, why not? And then we can sort of see as we go if we need more then. And this is really nice New Zealand sphagnum moss, which most people around the world use. I don't know if you guys have ever been to New Zealand, but it doesn't surprise me that they have the best moss and the best bark, because it is just, seems like the kind of country that grows perfect things. Yes, it's so beautiful. Everywhere you go, this looks like a picture from a postcard there. So yes, beautiful, beautiful country, but ridiculously cold, especially when you come from a place like Brisbane, like I do. All right. So because this Oncidium's got so many roots, and I just want to make sure I don't have any massive air gaps in it, I am actually going to put a little bit of my medium into the middle here. So just putting a bit of stuff there, and then we're going to place that in the pot. Right, and then we're going to give the pot a little bit of a twist to get all the roots in. Tuck the roots in a little bit, and we're just aiming for the base of the plant to be just under the level of the rim. There we go. And I'm actually putting this plant in the center because it's a bit weird, and these growths are actually growing into the center. So I don't know what the next growths will do, but we'll just place that in the center. And then we'll fill in around the edges. So the good thing about the clear plastic pots is you can really see where all the media is going, especially if you have a lot of roots. You can just make sure a little leaf there is going down. Okay. And just make sure there's no big air gaps. Give a little tap every now and again and a squeeze. And lift the plant up and down a little bit just to let the media settle in there a little bit. But when you water for the first time, everything will settle in as well. Use your thumb and pack it down fairly firmly. This is why the leca is really good. If you have a lot of sphagnum, you can obviously compress it to a point where there's not a lot of airspace. But by adding things like perlite, charcoal, leca, you sort of create a lot more air spaces and ensure that the sphagnum's not choking the plant too much. Great, so I think that's pretty good. We'll do the old lift the plant up test. So I'm lifting it up by the leaves. It's very secure in there. Pretty happy. Okay, so that's my second repotting done. We have the cat layer there that I'll that I'll put in another video. But here's our Oncidium. Potted up nice and firmly in there. Very secure and ready to be watered. So I'm going to water both of these plants quite thoroughly. Because this bark hasn't been soaked before, it'll need to be soaked this time, otherwise it's just going to repel water. But okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you found some of it useful. But yeah, I'll keep you up to date with these plants, and I'll see you next time.